She's just a line cook at some dive restaurant. It's actually kind of embarrassing. My sister said it to her friends while I stood 10 feet away, pretending not to hear, watching her perform the role of successful older sibling while I played the part of family disappointment. She had no idea that the dive restaurant she was mocking had 3 Michelin stars, or that the chef's coat hanging in my closet had my name embroidered above the title owner. But the moment I'd been quietly waiting for wasn't going to happen in a crowded room full of strangers. It was going to happen at her own dinner party, with her own friends watching, when a single phone call would unravel everything she thought she knew. Before I tell you what happened when that wine glass froze in her hand, drop a comment and let me know where you're watching from. And ask yourself honestly, if your family's entire social status was built on your invisible success, would you let them keep the illusion or shatter it completely? My name is Adiz. Most people call me Ada. I'm 32 years old, and I grew up in a Nigerian-American household in Chicago where success had a very specific definition. My parents came to America with almost nothing. My father became an engineer. My mother became a pharmacist. They worked brutal hours, saved every penny, and built a life they could be proud of. They also had very clear expectations for their children. My older sister, Kayamika, followed the path perfectly. Pre-med at Northwestern, medical school at Johns Hopkins, residency in dermatology. Now she runs a successful practice in Lincoln Park, treats wealthy clients, and posts photos of her designer lifestyle on Instagram. She's everything our parents dreamed of. I went to culinary school. The disappointment was immediate and total. Cooking. My father said when I told him I wasn't applying to colleges. You want to spend your life cooking for other people? Like a servant. It's a career, Dad. A real career. Your sister is going to be a doctor. What will you be? A cook. He said the word like it tasted bad in his mouth. My mother cried. Literally cried. She told her friends I was taking a gap year, rather than admit I'd enrolled at the Culinary Institute of America. When I graduated with honors, they didn't attend the ceremony. But I didn't need their approval. I needed to cook. The restaurant industry is brutal. 16-hour days. Burns and cuts and exhaustion so deep you forget what rest feels like. I started at the bottom, doing prep work in kitchens so hot I'd sweat through 3 shirts a night. I worked my way up through stations, learning every position, absorbing everything. By 24, I was sous chef at a respected farm-to-table restaurant in Chicago. By 26, I was executive chef at a new establishment backed by investors who believed in my vision. That restaurant earned its first Michelin star within 18 months. I didn't tell my family. They'd stopped asking about my career years ago, and I'd stopped volunteering information. Our relationship existed in a comfortable fiction where I was still figuring things out, and Kayamika was the successful one. The second restaurant came from the profits of the first. A different concept, different neighborhood, same obsessive attention to quality. Another star. Then a third restaurant. Then a fourth. By 30, I owned 5 establishments across Chicago and Los Angeles. 3 of them held Michelin stars. Combined, they generated over $30 million in annual revenue. I'd been featured in Food and Wine, Bon Appetit, and the New York Times food section. None of it under the name my family knew. Early in my career, I'd made a decision. I didn't want my family's shadow, their expectations, their disappointment anywhere near my work. So I built my empire under a different identity. Professionally, I was Ada Okafor, using my middle name and my grandmother's maiden name. My restaurants were owned through holding companies. My press photos were carefully controlled. The Chicago food world knew Ada Okafor as a reclusive culinary genius who rarely gave interviews and never discussed her personal life. My family knew Ada as the daughter who couldn't hold a real job. Kayamika was particularly brutal about it. She'd built her entire social persona around being sophisticated, cultured, successful. Part of that persona involved dining at exclusive restaurants and bragging about it endlessly. The irony was exquisite. Her favorite restaurant, the one she mentioned constantly to friends and posted about on Instagram, was Vespertine. 3 Michelin stars. 6-month waiting list. The crown jewel of my portfolio. Every time she tagged the restaurant in a post, every time she humble bragged about finally getting a reservation, every time she showed off photos of my food to her friends, she had no idea she was advertising my work. I could have blocked her reservations with a single phone call. I could have had her quietly removed from the guest list. Instead, I let her keep booking tables and paying full price and believing she was part of an exclusive world that existed because of me. Some might call that petty. I called it patience. The dinner party was Kayamika's idea. She hosted them quarterly, gatherings of her successful friends designed to showcase her beautiful apartment, her expensive taste, her curated life. I was rarely invited, but this time my mother had insisted. "Come support your sister," she said. It would mean a lot to her. I doubted that, but I went anyway. The apartment was exactly what I expected. Modern furniture, statement art, a kitchen that had clearly never seen serious cooking. Kayamika's friends were doctors, lawyers, finance executives, all drinking expensive wine and competing to see who'd had the most impressive week. I stood in the corner, nursing a glass of mediocre Chardonnay, watching my sister hold court. "You have to try Vespertine," she was saying to a circle of admirers, phone out, scrolling through photos. "It's impossible to get into, but I have connections. The tasting menu is absolutely divine." She pulled up a photo of a dish I'd designed. My creation. My vision. My hands had plated that exact arrangement dozens of times before teaching it to my team. "The chef is a genius," Kayamika continued. "Ada Okafor. Very mysterious. Nobody really knows anything about her." I almost choked on my wine. "I've heard she's very private," one of her friends said. "Doesn't do interviews. That's what makes her restaurant so exclusive. You're paying for the mystery as much as the food." Kayamika smiled smugly. "I managed to get reservations for my birthday next month. 3-month wait, but worth it." She caught my eye across the room. "Ada, you should try to get into a nice restaurant sometime. Expand your palate beyond wherever it is you work now." The room chuckled politely. The successful sister being gracious to the struggling one. How generous. I just smiled. That's when my phone rang. The caller ID showed Vespertine Marcus. Marcus Webb, my general manager at the flagship restaurant. He only called when something needed my direct attention. "Excuse me," I said, stepping toward the balcony. But Kayamika's living room was small, and the balcony door was stuck. Everyone could hear when I answered. "Marcus, what's happening?" "Ms. Okafor." His voice was warm, professional. "I wanted to thank you personally for the new menu designs. The critics are calling this your best season yet. The Times review should be out tomorrow." "That's wonderful news. Also, congratulations on the expansion. 5 Michelin-starred restaurants now, right? The board was discussing it this morning. You've built something remarkable." "Thank you, Marcus. Let's discuss the review tomorrow. I'm at a family event." "Of course, Ms. Okafor. Enjoy your evening." I hung up and turned around. Kayamika's wine glass was frozen halfway to her mouth. "Ms. Okafor," she repeated slowly. The room had gone quiet. Everyone was staring at me with varying degrees of confusion. "Ada," my mother said carefully from across the room. "Who was that?" I slipped my phone back into my pocket. That was the general manager of Vespertine, the restaurant Kayamika was just describing. "Why would the general manager of Vespertine be calling you?" Kayamika's voice was sharp with suspicion. "Because I own it." The words dropped into the silence like stones into still water. Kayamika laughed, a high, nervous sound. "That's ridiculous. Vespertine is owned by Ada Okafor, the famous chef. Not you. My middle name is Ada. Grandmother's maiden name was Okafor. I've been using it professionally for almost a decade." I watched her face as the connections formed. The realization spreading like cracks in ice. "The restaurant I've been posting about." She started. "Mine. The reservation I waited 3 months for. At my restaurant. Full price, same as everyone else. The tasting menu I said was created by a genius. I designed every course. I trained every cook. I approve every plate that leaves the kitchen." Kayamika set down her wine glass with shaking hands. Her friends were exchanging looks, the social dynamics of the room shifting in real time. "You own Vespertine," she said, as if repeating it would make it make sense. "I own 5 restaurants. 3 Michelin stars across the portfolio. Vespertine is the flagship, but there's also Ember, Coastline, Midnight Garden, and the new place in LA. I pulled out my phone and opened the Vespertine website, scrolling to the About page. My photo. My name. My bio. The mysterious chef you were describing? The one nobody knows anything about? That's me. Your little sister. The line cook at the dive restaurant." The room was absolutely silent. Kayamika's voice came out strangled. "Why didn't you tell us? Why would I? Every time I mentioned cooking, you changed the subject. Every time I talked about my career, Dad asked when I was getting a real job. You built your entire social persona around being the successful one. I was just supposed to be the disappointment you could feel superior to. I looked around the room at her friends, all witnessing this unraveling. The exclusive reservations you brag about? My restaurants. The Instagram posts about dining experiences you can't get into? My tables. The food photos you use to impress people? My recipes. Your entire social currency, Kayamika, is built on my work. Work you've been mocking for a decade. One of her friends, a woman I didn't know, spoke up hesitantly. So when Kayamika said she had connections to get into Vespertine, she has no connections. She books online like everyone else. Pays full price. Waits in line. I could have comped her meals, given her the best table, introduced her to my team. Instead, I let her believe she'd earned something exclusive while building her lifestyle brand on my invisible success. Kayamika's eyes were wet. Whether from embarrassment, shame, or something else, I couldn't tell. Ada, I didn't know. You didn't want to know. It was easier to have a struggling sister than to admit maybe I understood something you didn't. Maybe the cooking career you were embarrassed by was actually extraordinary. I picked up my bag. I'm not angry, Kayamika. I stopped needing your approval years ago. I just wanted you to understand something. Every table you've bragged about sitting at, every dish you've photographed, every reservation you've celebrated as proof of your sophisticated lifestyle, it all exists because of me. The sister who couldn't hold a real job built the restaurants you used to impress your friends. I walked toward the door. By the way, I added, your birthday reservation at Vespertine? I'll make sure you get the chef's table. On the house. Consider it a gift from your embarrassing little sister. I left before she could respond. The next few weeks were complicated. My family had to reconstruct their entire understanding of who I was. And for people who'd spent a decade certain they had me figured out, that process was painful. My parents called confused and emotional. My father said he was proud of me, which might have been the first time he'd ever said those words about my cooking career. My mother wanted to see the restaurants, to understand what I'd built. I gave them a tour, showed them the kitchens, introduced them to my teams, walked them through the careful choreography of a service night. My father stood in the Vespertine dining room during prep and looked around with an expression I'd never seen on his face. You built all this, he said quietly. From nothing. From cooking, I corrected. The thing you said wasn't a real job. He nodded slowly, accepting the truth of it. Kayamika took longer to come around. The humiliation of that dinner party lingered. But eventually she called. I'm sorry, she said. Not just for what I said that night. For years of saying things like it. I was so focused on my own success that I couldn't see yours. I know. Why didn't you just tell me? Correct me the first time I said something dismissive. I thought about it before answering. Because I wanted to see if you'd ever ask. If you'd ever be curious enough about my life to discover the truth on your own. You never did. You were too busy being the successful sister to wonder if maybe I was succeeding too. She was quiet for a long moment. I want to do better, she said finally. Can we try again? We're trying. She came to Vespertine last month. This time I sat with her. Explained each course. Introduced her to Marcus and the head chef and the sommelier. She posted about it afterward, but the caption was different this time. Dining at my sister's restaurant. The successful one in our family. So proud of her. If you're watching this and someone has ever dismissed your passion as unrealistic, your career as embarrassing, your dreams as less than, I want you to know something. Build anyway. Build quietly. Build relentlessly. Build until the people who look down on you are standing in the empire you created, trying to figure out how they missed it. My sister said I was just a line cook at some dive restaurant. Now she brags about eating at mine. If this story hit home, share yours in the comments. And subscribe, because the next story might be exactly what you needed to hear.